Hey everyone, I am Jason Crandell. Welcome to the Yoga Teacher's Companion. In this episode, I'm going to teach you how to help anyone that has pain in their knee in pigeon pose modify the posture so that we get rid of the pain and we get a pose that works really nice to lengthen and create more space in the outer hip. The first thing that I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about where people experience pain in the knee when they're experiencing it in pigeon, and the underlying mechanism of why this occurs in pigeon. Because if we understand where, and we understand the underlying mechanism of why this occurs, we're not just gonna find random solutions like flexing the foot or changing the angle of the knee, which sometimes work, but don't really account for the primary reason that knee pain occurs. So first, virtually everybody that experiences pain in their knee in pigeon gets it in one of two places. They get it on the inside of the knee, and it can be anywhere from the more anterior to the posterior, but usually it's the front medial part of the knee or the front lateral part of the knee. This is actually going to give us a pretty good clue as to what's happening. Now understand, there are many other poses where people get discomfort in other parts of the knee. There are lots of poses where people experience pain in the front of the knee or the back of the knee. But pigeon pose pain is almost always medial or lateral. So let's look a little bit at the mechanism and a common underlying variable that we want to understand. So this represents the left leg, okay? This is left leg. So oftentimes what is going to be happening when someone is experiencing this discomfort is one of two things, or maybe both of these things simultaneously. Number one, too much rotation of the knee joint when someone's in pigeon, or too much adduction, too much medial stress or medial movement of the knee. Now, if both of those things are happening and someone happens to have a little bit of sensitivity to the knee, then this is almost always going to create discomfort that is actually pretty easy to solve when we understand what to do. Now, there's one more thing that I want to throw out, and this is an important variable. Oftentimes, people have tight hips and instability and sensitivity in the knees. So if I have tighter hip and I have a little bit more instability or laxity in the knee, coupled with any sensitivity or any existing injuries, then pigeon pose often produces this rotational or medial torque to the knee that can get us a little bit into trouble. Before we go on, I want to make it really clear, I love pigeon. I teach it all the time. I don't think that this is an unsafe pose. But like so many poses, we have to understand the mechanism of why this doesn't work for some people and how we can change it. So the main thing that we want to consider now, everybody, is we want to shift our attention to how we tend to transition into the pose, because this is going to be the first step of fixing the pose. So more often than not, we come into pigeon pose from downward facing dog. And again, if this is not a problem for you or your students, then it's not a problem. It's not something to change. But when someone is getting that knee tweak, this is when we need to address it. So oftentimes we're coming in from down dog. And I'm going to do this a few times just to kind of set up the picture for you. So we tend to come in and we bring a leg in and we land on the shin first, right? So when I come in from down dog, I'm stepping my left leg in. My left leg is landing. Now, when my left leg lands, that means my left shin is now fixed. It's attached to the ground. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower my hips as much as I reasonably can, depending on their flexibility, right? So just again, this very common scenario. We come in, we bring our leg into pigeon, it lands, and then to whatever degree we have the range or the flexibility, we're lowering the hips, okay? But we're getting this whole concept first, right? We're landing with the knee, or we're landing with the shin, then we're lowering the thigh, okay? So now, if I do this, everybody, and I just show it to you with the skeleton, you're gonna start to see, coupled back with that concept I was speaking a moment ago, about why this setup can really put some undesirable torque into the knee itself. So we come in, we land on the shin, right? And as we do this, here we are, we land on the shin is now fixed, so the shin is in one plane. And then from here, we start to lower the hip down. So the shin starts in one plane, the thigh is not in that same plane. So the shin is fixed, the thigh is mobile, which means if you have instability in the knee, sensitivity in the knee, and especially if you have tightness in the hip, this motion of landing shin, then descending thigh can create too much of that individuated motion at the knee. Now this is really key because I never want to just tell you what to do. I want us to kind of think about always the whys. So it doesn't really matter, everybody, honestly, if I come in and the knee is deeply flexed, or if I come in and the knee is 45-degree angle to the front of the mat, or I come in and my shin is parallel to the front of the mat. It doesn't matter if I flex the foot or don't flex the foot. In all of these situations, my shin is fixed, my thigh is mobile. If my hip is not flexible and my knee is unstable, that's gonna go to the knee. So what do we need to do to fix this, everybody? To be honest with you, it's really, really simple. And it all starts with not coming in from downward facing dog. I'm gonna make this disclaimer one more time. I come in from downward facing dog all the time, but I don't have a problem with my knee in the pose. So if you need to troubleshoot this pose, here's what I want you to do for yourself or your students. I want you to start here. I want you to start in Baddha Konasana, kind of a loose Baddha Konasana. And I like to have the knee at a 90-degree angle because it's gonna get a little bit more of efficient stretch in the external rotators. So I start like this and then watch. I'm just gonna lean to the side. Now, when I do this, everybody, I don't look like I'm anywhere near pigeon, but don't worry about that. I lean to the side and my shin and my thigh simultaneously come to the ground. There's no point where my shin and my thigh are in different planes and I'm getting that rotational torque. So I just lean to a side, just like this. I'll show it from this angle, everybody. So look, I just lean to that side. So this is my left leg, okay? So this is gonna be my pigeon pose leg. I just lean to it. So now, everybody, the shin and the thigh are in the same plane. There's no moments where they're not moving together. There's no moment. If you look at this, everybody, if I am here, right? If I get this leg how I want it, like this, the thigh and the shin in the same plane, how could I create torque in the knee itself? There's no way to torque the knee. It's perfectly even, right? They're on the same plane, they're fixed to the same thing. They can't move out of position. So all we need to do is we need to get that leg in position first. Then, keeping it there, then we sneak the back leg into position. So we get the leg in first. You can kind of just play it as a 90-90 sit. For a lot of people, this is plenty of stretch. One of the things I like to do, everybody, is I like to take my hand into the arch of my front foot or my hand behind that heel, just to kind of hold it in place. And then from there, when I come forward, this setup, the hips are not gonna be in the same plane, so we're kind of breaking that rule of pigeon, but we're not doing it as a back bend, so it's fine. So instead of just coming forward over the knee, I'm gonna put a little bit more angle to it. I'm gonna come forward so I'm bringing my chest towards the front shin like this, okay? So I have a little bit of a diagonal to it. I can keep this back knee as is, but if I'm a really deep pigeon poser, or for some reason I just want that back leg to be straight, I get this front leg into position first, and then I just start to sneak this back leg into a little bit more of a conventional pigeon pose as I come forward, okay? Now, there's one quick caveat, which is I have pretty thin thighs. So I don't have a big discrepancy between my shin and my thigh, which means when I lean to the side like this, my thigh and my shin, they're in the same plane because the diameter between the two is not significantly different. But if you have someone with more volume, more robustness to their thighs, you can imagine that when that someone comes down, right, even if they're coming in like I suggest, the thigh is gonna hit the ground, but it's gonna be a big enough diameter here that the knee is gonna be off the ground. Not a problem at all. In this situation, all we wanna do is we wanna have another resource. It can be a bolster, it can be a folded blanket, but what we wanna do is we just wanna fill this space, right? A lot of times people will take a blanket under the hip or some sort of support under the hip in pigeon, which is fine for comfort, especially if you wanna be there for a long time and relax more, but it isn't going to help the knee. So in this situation, we just shim up the outside of the thigh, the outside of the shin and the outside of the knee so they're all the same height. And then from there, we take that back leg into that 90-90 position. We base on the hand and come forward, or we straighten the back leg, just depending on our range. Flexing the foot in the pose is not a reliable fix. The muscles that flex the foot don't cross the knee. When you flex the foot, you engage a little bit more of the fascial sleeves that run through that region, but they're not, for most people, gonna be robust enough to stabilize the knee if there's discomfort in the pose. So you can try to flex the foot, you can change the angle of the front shin, but those are relatively, they're low risk. You can try them, there's nothing wrong with them, but they're usually pretty low reward situations. Understanding why the pain hurts, under what conditions the pain hurts, the mechanism the pain hurts, now we can really see universally how to solve this issue for ourselves and for our students. Before I let you go, a quick shameless plug, especially if you made it this far. I am re-releasing one of my favorite online courses, A Better Way to Flow. It is all about injury prevention and injury maintenance in the yoga world. This little bit on Pigeon Pose is taken straight from the course. So if you want to be more knowledgeable and more comfortable, both with working with yourself, limiting the potential for injuries and kind of knowing how to manage certain challenges, or for your students, I would love for you to check this out. I'm releasing it again in the end of February 2024. So everybody, thanks a ton for joining me. I'd love to see you in that course. And if this stuff works for you, please give me a like and a subscribe. It's helpful. All right, have a good day. Bye-bye.